They believed it was just another ceremonial drive. Before dawn, Queen Camilla's convoy left Windsor. There was no fanfare or press, just 5 black cars with tinted windows and a list of people that didn't raise any questions until a Coldstream guard at the gate paused. Because his canine partner didn't walk past one of the cars, he stopped, growled, and sat down. 12 minutes later, the whole caravan was stuck behind the gates. The Queen Consort was still in her car, and a royal guard was on the phone with Prince William. Because inside those crates wasn't flowers. It was something illegal and perhaps even dangerous. Before we show you what the guard found inside, and why the Prince of Wales personally stopped Camilla from moving, please leave a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, and hit the subscribe button with the bell icon. This wasn't about being rude or disobeying. This was about a dog who knew the truth, and a royal guard who chose to believe him. The South Complex in Windsor didn't sleep, but it did get quiet just before daybreak. The rain had transformed into mist, which made everything shiny and made gravel into black paste. The perimeter floodlights hummed low overhead, making wide cones of amber light across Logistics Gate 3, the penultimate stop before any royal convoy touched public highways. Sergeant Lionel Hart stood next to the control outpost with his gloved hands behind his back and his boots lined up with the edge of the painted bay line. The Coldstream Guard has been on duty for 17 years and has won 3 medals. He is the last soldier left from a prior detail that once secured the Queen's final Jubilee route. He worked with the RAF's police K9 branch to do outbound integrity checks these days. What most people thought was ceremonial redundancy, until it wasn't. 2 handlers walked in figure 8s across the holding lane to the dog units. Engines were running, and diesel fumes curled up under sodium vapor light. The Belgian Malinois dogs moved like torch springs, thin and concentrated. Their noses dropped along the axles amid containers that were under carts covered in canvas, crates set aside for a floral display at the Heritage Theatre in Oxfordshire, another for sound staging. Then Rex stopped moving. He was the older of the 2 dogs, not the fastest but by far the most accurate. He stopped in the middle of his stride, ears up, and head turned toward the back of the second support truck in Camilla's convoy. His tail stiffened. A moment later, he let out a single low bark. It wasn't scared or angry, it was just clear. Hart knew it away what the signal meant. He had worked with Rex for 3 years and had seen him flag everything from unmarked drugs to plastic bombs. The dog had never once provided a false positive. He had never heard Rex bark like that before. For anything organic, it should be low, controlled, and almost like a conversation. That sound signified metals, complicated chemicals, or anything made by humans. The handler tried again and walked Rex back to readjust his exposure range. The same thing happened. This time, the dog poured once on the back panel, sat down right away, and gazed. Hart had seen that same pattern previously, 18 months ago, when a diplomatic attaché tried to get prototype communications gear through Heathrow under the guise of helping people. Same way of sitting, same unblinking gaze. 3 people were arrested, and a ministry-level investigation was launched as a result of that case. Hart took 2 steps forward and nodded to show he understood. The handler's face didn't change, but his voice got lower. He's flagging metallic nitrate trace, sir, not explosive mass. It's something left over, like a compound sealant. Hart's eyes moved to the convoy itself. 5 cars, shiny and almost silent, were set to leave in less than 4 minutes. One of them was carrying the Queen Consort. The crates were listed as items for events, table decorations, banners, and displays to remember. Rex's tail hit the tarmac again with a thump. He was still sitting and looking. Hart took a deep breath. These dogs are trained in 5 different types of compounds. That one isn't from a wreath. He didn't yell. He only pointed his chin toward the control booth behind him. Stay on the line. The gate is still closed. And to the handler, even quieter. Mark the spot and don't touch anything. Hart had learned that the most dangerous thing wasn't what a manifest said. It was what it didn't say. The engines of the convoy were idling in a sluggish, coordinated hum that the rain muffled. As Hart walked toward the second truck, his boots left crisp marks in the wet road. Exhaust swirled in thin ribbons around the barrier lights. A wiper blade creaked across the windshield every few seconds, keeping rhythm with the steady sound of rain falling. There was no drama, no noise, just a lot of stress that made everything quiet. Oliver Grant, the lead coordinator, got out of the first SUV with his umbrella half open and his phone in his hand. "Sergeant, what's taking so long?" he yelled, trying to hide his anger behind politeness. "We're ready to leave, but we're already 5 minutes late." Hart didn't look up straight away. He was crouched over the back of the car, running a finger down the latch line where the dog had pointed. "We've got a positive compound hit. The rules say we have to check it again." Grant's voice got sharper. "That's crazy. All the cargo was cleared out of Clarence House yesterday afternoon." Hart slowly straightened up, his eyes level. "Then you won't mind showing me the papers." Grant handed over a folded sheet of paper in plastic with a printed manifest and a light blue ink clearance stamp on it. Hart seized it and held it beneath the floodlight. There was nothing in the custodial ID box. He tapped it once with his glove. "This code is for household transportation, not security clearance." Grant's jaw tightened. "You are stopping the Queen Consort's convoy for a dog." Hart didn't blink. No say on what the dogs found. The second K9 team went back over the area behind them. Another signal, but this time from the other side of the same car. 2 dogs, same response. No doubt. Hart lifted his radio, and the light in the control booth flickered. His voice was steady, and every sentence was cut by years of practice. "Gate 3 to command. Possible Category A transport irregularity. Lock all outbound lanes. Standby verification." The operator behind the glass booth paused for just long enough to peer through the rain, see Hart's stance, and see the dogs keeping their ground before pressing the switch. The security arms fell over both exit lanes, and the red lights flashed once before staying on. As the drivers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the buzz of the convoy grew louder. At the front of the line, Camilla's car stayed steady. The windows were tinted, and there was no movement inside. Only a faint trace of her aide's profile moved against the light inside. Grant opened his hands. "Do you know what this looks like?" Hart looked him in the eye. "That's not my problem. What it smells like is my problem." The rain got heavier, pounding on the metal roofs of the cars and filling the space between them. A dog shook off water and its collar tags made a noise. The gates stayed shut, and for the first time that morning, no one moved. The tinted window of the front car went down with a quiet hiss from the hydraulics. As Queen Camilla leaned forward to see, the rain slid off the glass in smooth sheets. When she spoke, her voice was calm, yet had a harsh edge to it. "Sergeant Hart, why aren't we moving?" Hart took 2 steps forward, keeping his shoulders square and his posture perfect. "Ma'am, K9 units found an unlisted compound on one of the support vehicles. The clearance paperwork doesn't match the manifest. The convoy will stay on hold until custodial confirms." Camilla looked at him for a long time. "My office gave the go-ahead for this convoy. It has staging equipment and memorial crates for Oxfordshire. That's all." Hart didn't change his mind. "Then your office will send you a letter to confirm it. Until then, the protocol is still in effect." Her aide leaned over from the back seat and said to her, "It's probably the solvents, the leftover paint. The dogs might be reacting to that." Camilla kept looking at Hart. "Then tell him." Grant stepped back out into the rain and showed the identical papers again. "Sergeant, the crates have lacquered finishes. The set pieces were sprayed down at Clarence yesterday. That could be why the alert was false." Hart nodded quickly. "Then we'll scan the container for density. If it's paint, we'll see a light organic readout." He moved to the side panel of the second support SUV, where the portable scanner had already been set up. The technician gave him a tablet. The screen lit up with a grid overlay that showed how dense the internal structure was. Hart remarked, "Organic would show up green," and tapped the tablet once. No, it didn't. The box turned a rich yellow-orange, which meant there was metal inside. Not shavings or structure, but solid pieces. Hart turned the screen so that Grant could see it. Paint solvents don't come in tungsten alloy. The K9 handler stood still nearby, his dog at his feet, and watched the conversation with eyes that were hard to read. Camilla's palm was now resting on the edge of the door at the front of the convoy. She didn't say anything else, she just observed. Hart went back to his comm, his voice low yet firm. "This is Gate 3. Confirm that there is unregistered metal cargo. Request custodial notification. Priority 1. Hold all convoy vehicles in place." The rain got heavier, making everything slippery and causing the brightness from the red gate lights to reflect off the tarmac like veins. No one had been yelled at or given orders, but the Queen's convoy, with its engines going and full tanks of gas, hadn't moved an inch. This wasn't because it couldn't. It was because someone inside it hadn't said anything, and someone outside it was still watching. Hart used a secure terminal within the control station to look through the Royal Convoy log database. There was a digital record of every departure that included senior royals. This included the time, the people, the cargo, the class, the route tier, and the custodial endorsement. The Queen Consort's convoy, which was labeled as an outward ceremonial rehearsal at level 3, had no signs of high-profile movement, no VIP layer, no armored asset, and no security liaison attached. This was a complete misinterpretation. Hart frowned. Camilla had talked about going to a literacy event in Oxfordshire, which was a small but planned engagement, just 2 days before. So why was her conveyance concealed behind a low-tier logistical tag? He dug deeper into the internal routing history and got to secure dispatch overlays. He noticed an internal memo from Domestic Security Command that could only be used by a few people in a grayed-out appendix. It was dated 2 weeks ago. The material were short, yet very clear. Program Tactilis does not allow external demonstrations, off-site storage, or mobile transfers of any development stage security prototypes without written permission from the MOD liaison and custodial office. If you break the rules, your transportation privileges will be taken away right away. Hart's gut felt constricted. Tactilis program. He had heard of it, but only stories. A set of urban monitoring instruments for the military ministry to test, directional microphones that are easy to carry, devices for acoustic triangulation, audio technology for crowd mapping. Still being tested, still a secret. He looked over the manifest on the car that was helping the convoy again. No mention, simply flower arrangements, display grade, a clear case of mislabeling. Then he saw something else, the declaration of the cargo weight, which was 240 kals. He looked up the standard weight limits for ceremonial staging equipment. Banners usually weighed between 15 and 20 kilos per crate, table sets between 25 and 30 kilos, and sound equipment, if it was included, seldom weighed more than 40 kilos per unit. He figured it out. The overall weight should have been closer to 140 kals for the declared contents. Someone had put an extra 100 kals of undeclared stuff inside those crates, and then changed the weight log to reflect the higher weight. That wasn't a mistake. That was planned hiding. Gate 3, K92. The handler says there is constant magnetic interference near Cargo Bay 2. The field is only disrupted when the scanner passes the left side. At first, Hart didn't answer. He looked out the booth window where the dogs were now sitting farther back, and their handlers were holding them on shorter leashes. Their ears stayed up. Rex hadn't moved at all. He let out a long breath. This isn't floral cargo, it's electronic. The fog was starting to clear up a little bit outside, and the gold-framed crown decal on the lead vehicle's license plate was shining. A line of polished metal and protocol, still sitting there but not moving. Hart entered the internal log and marked the cargo manifest for evaluation by the custodial intercept team. He didn't require proof to do something. He already had it, not from what was said, but from what was misfiled, misnamed, and hidden under royal varnish. He looked again at the package that was sealed. This is either a mistake, he said to himself, or someone is trying to move secret tech in the Queen's name. Hart connected the secure line, and the hum of encrypted circuitry filled the silence. As he typed in the custodian relay code, the flickering monitor projected a soothing blue light on his gloves. It rang once. "This is William," the voice said, calm, alert, and not surprised. Hart straightened up without thinking. "Sir, Sergeant Lionel Hart, Coldstream Guard. I'm calling from Gate 3, Windsor outbound. There has been a problem with Queen Consort Camilla's convoy manifest on multiple levels." William didn't say anything. K9 teams found traces of metallic nitrate on a rear support vehicle. A second scan showed an inorganic density that didn't match the declared cargo. The manifest lists ceremonial items, but the convoy is logged under a level 3 rehearsal, so there was no custodial seal. Clearance was printed but not signed. I pulled the archive. Domestic Security has a standing memo that says Program Tactilis tech can't be moved off-site. A little break. Do you really think that's what's on board? Yes, sir. I haven't opened it yet, but the readings and the dog's behavior suggest advanced electronics. The magnetic field feedback confirmed this. There was an attempt to misclassify it, which may have been on purpose. Now, William's voice was lower. Don't open or unload anything, and don't let that convoy leave the premises. Hart nodded without thinking, even though there was no camera. Got it. Does she know? Camilla has talked to me directly and denied doing anything wrong. An aide says it's lacquered paint that is causing false alarms. William didn't answer immediately. Then you know better. Yes, sir. Okay. A tiny mechanical shift in the background of William. He was on the move. Don't get any worse. I'll be there soon. Got it. The call went dead. Camilla's car was still parked outside, under the overhang. The window is now rolled back up. The light inside was dim. Her shadow was still. Hart left the booth and went back into the lane. The rain had turned back into mist, light but steady. He nodded to each of the handlers as he walked by. "Get ready." A junior security officer leaned in close at the gate. "She just asked if we're keeping her hostage." Hart didn't laugh. "Say no to her." He fixed his gloves and looked at the dark car in front of him again. "Tell her she's not a prisoner. She's just a passenger until we're safe." The convoy was tense and silent, with 5 engines running low and idling. The windshield wipers ticked in time with the rain, which caught in gentle halos beneath the amber gate lights. And in the quiet between those long seconds, Hart felt the weight of it. Not scandal, not yet, but something worse in its own way. A breach trying to wear a uniform. He looked down the line and said something under his breath. For once, the road out of Windsor leads back in. The sound of the motorcade coming up was almost lost in the downpour. 3 cars, no flashing lights, no official outriders, just black shapes going down the inner lane with silent authority and precision. Hart was already at the entrance to the checkpoint, with rain collecting on the shoulders of his overcoat and a clipboard under one arm. The middle car stopped just in front of him, and the back door opened. He didn't move. Without any ceremony, Prince William got out. He didn't have a sash or a security detail with him. He merely wore a black coat with a high collar and a little bit of road dust at the hem. You could tell it was him by the way he walked. On purpose, steady, and not in a hurry. Without saying a word, he walked forward Hart, his gloved hand already reaching for the printed clearance document. Hart gave it to him. "This was given to us by Convoy Lead, and had an old household watermark on it. There was no serial number or signature." William put the paper at an angle under the gate lights. "This came from a form for household logistics. It's not a security pass, it's a shell." Oliver Grant came out of the front of the caravan, still holding his phone like a prop he wasn't ready to let go of yet. "Your Royal Highness, we were just trying to speed up the delivery of some small equipment." William gave him a look that said to stop. Who put their name on this? Grant was unsure. It was sent out with temporary aid clearance. The usual processing team had already. Temporary aids don't let sealed cargo through the Windsor gates, especially if it's not allowed. A beat went by. The air got thicker. After that, Camilla got out of her car. Her face didn't change, it was only carefully measured. She walked up without an umbrella, and the soft mist dotted the shoulders of her gray coat. Her voice was calm, yet definitely sharp when she talked. "This delay is ridiculous. We're moving support crates for staging. The dogs got it wrong. We've already lost 25 minutes. William turned all the way around to look at her. "Is it against the law to smuggle police gear under the Crown's flag?" A hush fell over the convoy. Camilla's eyes got smaller. "What do you mean?" William didn't yell. "I'm not implying anything. I'm pointing out unregistered equipment on a convoy that is supposed to be for ceremonial delivery. The Defense Ministry has memos that say this kind of movement is not allowed." She quickly turned to her assistant. "What is he saying?" Grant moved closer and said more quietly, "Ma'am, it was supposed to be a demo unit for the event. It wasn't flagged for a problem, so it wasn't a big deal." William's face didn't change. A demo unit for a literacy event. He let the ridiculousness hang in the air for a bit. "Please tell me what you were going to show me." Acoustic surveillance at a children's reading. Camilla's calmness only lasted a short time. It was meant for crowd control and security around the perimeter. The venue asked for extra safety measures after what happened last year, William remarked. Then the venue should have made a formal request to the Home Office, not gotten classified equipment through an unlisted royal convoy. You don't get to choose which rules apply to you. The rain was falling steadily on the cars. At some point, one engine stopped working altogether, and then another. Camilla stood up straight. "I was trying to help by giving them the tools they needed. You were trying to move stolen equipment off-site without anyone watching," William said in a calm voice, but his words were heavy, "and as soon as someone questioned it, your first instinct was to use your title to get rid of the guard who caught it." Camilla didn't say anything. William didn't move. "Then it will be shown at Windsor, not Oxfordshire." He looked at Hart and gave him the tiniest of nods. "Go ahead." And just like that, the mood changed. No one had to yell. Power had spoken, and it hadn't come from behind tinted glass. Hart went slowly and carefully, with a clipboard under one arm and new latex gloves on. 2 technicians from the ministry's Joint Asset Verification Unit followed him in quiet, standing on either side of the suspect's support truck, like surgeons approaching an operating room. As Hart unlocked the back cargo doors, rain tapped continuously on the roof of the SUV. There were 3 little matte black crates inside, each no bigger than a carry-on bag. They were covered in a thin layer of packing foam and fake bottom floral padding. The brass serial tabs, MOD, Drew, and VX243, were the only things that were still readable. Hart's jaw got tight. He looked at one of the techs, who nodded once in a superficial way. Ministry of Defense, Defense Research Unit, secret. He opened the first package. Inside, there was a sleek rectangular device that was jet black and had no markings. It was about the size of a tablet and had a ridged sensor grill around one edge. There was a second layer underneath that carried antenna arrays, fiber bundles, and what appeared like a box for diagnostic uplinks. The technician looked at the serial tag. You know, these are the Tactilus C units. They can intercept acoustic crowds, log all directions, and send unencrypted voice data within 100-meter cones. Hart didn't say anything. Another tech opened the second box. The same things inside, but this time there are 2 extra handheld controllers. These weren't declared, not for trials, not for migration. Oliver Grant's voice emerged from behind them, sounding faint and unconvincing. They were meant to show security at the venue, VIP escort tracking, only for non-lethal passive field use. Hart turned around to look. Without saying anything, Prince William went closer, and the rain made his field coat sticky. With a gloved hand, he picked up one of the gadgets and looked at the label inside. Serial series ends in 43A. These were part of the group that was marked as missing during last quarter's audit. Camilla walked carefully toward the front car, pulling her coat closer and staring at the open containers. Their safety equipment aren't weapons, and don't get in the way. William didn't speak loudly. Their surveillance tools are not allowed. They are illegal outside of the ministry's jurisdiction. You shouldn't have access to them, let alone be moving them under a royal banner. Camilla didn't say anything. Hart closed the first crate again. Every move was silent and precise. Sir, the technician responded, giving him a paperless custody registration. I recommend full seizure. The chain of evidence starts now. Hart wrote his name. William looked at the open case one last time before turning to Hart. Bring the convoy back to Windsor. The lockdown starts now. Hart tapped on his radio. Code red for all units. Return to custodial. Full reversal. Engines faded. Movement started, although it was gradual and unanticipated. And the dogs just sat there quietly, as if they were done with their duties. Guardians who had never barked, merely pointed and waited. By noon, the convoy had quietly returned to the inner border of Windsor, with each car going down the east lane to avoid being seen by the public. The containers that were taken were brought straight to the custodial annex, which is a windowless building that is part of the north wing. They had not been opened since they were first found. It was where the Crown dealt with threats, not secrets. Hart stood just inside the annex's holding chamber and watched as the technicians went through their cataloging process. White gloves, sealed evidence tables, and triple-chain custody registration. There were 2 copies of everything, one digital and one handwritten. The containers were 1 meter apart and placed on steel plinths that had been strengthened. The first one opened in front of the camera. The technician recited the internal code out loud. VX2143A, confirmed match to Defense Research Unit's missing batch. Classified as Tactilus subseries. Status stolen, not scrapped. Last seen 6 months ago. Case marked inactive under misplaced evaluation. William stood behind the line with his arms crossed. One of the analysts commented, "These were never meant to leave North. They weren't allowed to be used in palaces. They weren't allowed to be used." Hart spoke softly. They were cleared for nothing. They found other tags, 2 from internal ministry monitoring plates, and one that was virtually unreadable but still enough to confirm it. These units had disappeared from the inventory after a failed pre-deployment test and had never been properly reported. They were buried in paperwork, lost to the system, and were only found again behind the Queen Consort's flower crates. But what they saw behind the apparatus made Hart's jaw tighten. Inside a fake panel at the bottom of the second container was a laminated sheet with the words "Deployment Schedule Private" on it. It listed 6 different things that would happen during the next 4 months. Camilla made a public presence at each one. Each place has its own grid coordinates. Each event has an anticipated audience density and the best places for the surveillance devices to be placed. The third package included something even worse, an unlabeled data storage drive that was attached to a portable tablet by an encrypted wire. When the technician turned it on, the screen showed a list of prior recordings, including audio files, dates going back 3 weeks, and locations that matched where Camilla had recently been privately. Someone had previously been testing the equipment, and they had done so without permission, paperwork, or a good reason in the law. William gave the following order without raising his voice: an immediate audit of all household transport manifests, Any clearance given in the last 6 months will be looked at again. This will start tonight." He went to a security officer who was wearing plain clothes. "Camilla's outbound permissions have been taken away until further notice." Hart, who was still next to the evidence table, signed the last seizure log. A custodial attendant stopped near him and asked in a low voice, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if the dogs hadn't found the scent?" Hart didn't answer right away. He saw the last crate being sealed in red custody wrap, which was a ribbon that no one was happy about. William stood next to him. It wasn't disobedience, it was defense. Hart's answer was soft. "The only thing that's different is how quiet it looks." William nodded once, and his eyes were on the van that was now being filled with the sealed cases. That's why it worked. There was a hydraulic hiss as the bay doors closed. Inside those crates there were no gems or heirlooms, simply unlawful technology that was almost used by the people when a royal convoy was nearby. Hart stayed behind as the van drove away to the archive vault. He wasn't there for the ceremony. He just wanted to see it depart Windsor the correct way. Like anything that matters, it was escorted, logged, and accounted for. Windsor was back to its old rhythm, quiet, ordered, and undisturbed, by the time the last car drove around the outside wall. No news releases, no announcements, just wet cobblestones drying in the pale overcast sky and the faint hiss of pressure valves releasing from the vault annex. Hart stood by himself at the edge of the Southfield kennels, with his cap under one arm and his uniform collar wet. The smell of rain hung in the air, sticking to the grass and gravel. Rex was lying next to him, sprawled out under the overhang with his muzzle resting lightly on Hart's boot. The dog didn't lift his head, but his ears perked at every engine sound. He didn't have to. He had finished his part. Hart reached down once, and absent-mindedly scratched behind Rex's ear. He murmured, "I told you it wasn't paint." Footsteps came from the sideway, slow and steady. Prince William came out with his gloves off and his coat off. He was only carrying a closed file folder under one arm. He paused next to Hart and watched Rex for a time before talking. "You trust your dogs more than you trust your papers." Hart didn't look. "Sir, dogs don't make fake signatures." William let out a soft breath, like he was going to chuckle, but not quite. "Keep that philosophy. We'll need it more than ever. No formal thanks, no decorations. Just a look at the quiet road where the sealed convoy had tried to leave without being seen, and a shared understanding that sometimes the things you stop are more important than the ones you let through." The lights hadn't turned on yet. It was that early evening gray when the sky seemed to hold everything still. The only movement was the wet flags moving slightly above the compound gate. Hart fixed his gloves and turned back toward the row of kennels, making noise with his boots on the gravel. Rex got up and walked next to him, not because he was told to, but because he sensed it was time. And behind them, parked in quiet, were the original convoy cars, which were now empty, frigid, and locked in place. Not punished, simply stopped. Because not everything that leaves Windsor gets announced, and not everything that stays is meant to be seen. But something stayed today. Because one man heard a puppy and wouldn't look away.